Marcus Chen floated in the observation deck of Research Station Omega-7, watching the gas giant's purple storms swirl below. The coffee in his magnetic cup had gone cold hours ago, but he didn't mind. 3 years on this remote station had taught him to find peace in the endless dance of the planet's clouds. The alarm shattered his quiet moment. Emergency beacon detected, the computer announced. Unknown vessel approaching from Sector 7. Marcus pushed off from the viewing window and drifted toward the control panel. His fingers moved quickly across the holographic display, bringing up scanner readings. A small object tumbled through space, barely larger than an escape pod. Its hull was dark and smooth, unlike anything in the human fleet database. "Station, this is Commander Chen," he spoke into his communicator. "I'm picking up a distress signal from an unknown craft. Permission to investigate." Static crackled before Dr. Sarah Kim's voice came through. "Marcus, our sensors show that pod is of alien origin. Protocol requires us to report this to command immediately." Marcus studied the readings more carefully. Life signs flickered weakly inside the pod. Someone was alive in there, but not for much longer. The craft's power systems were failing, and its life support showed critical levels. "Sarah, whoever's in there will be dead before command responds." "I'm going out there," a long pause. "Marcus, you know the regulations about first contact." "This isn't first contact," Marcus interrupted, already moving toward the docking bay. "This is a rescue." 20 minutes later, Marcus guided his small transport ship toward the damaged pod. Up close, he could see the elegant curves of alien engineering. Burn marks scarred its surface, and a large crack ran along one side. Whatever had happened to the main ship, this pod had barely escaped. The docking clamps engaged with a soft clunk. Marcus sealed his helmet and opened the airlock. The alien pod's atmosphere was thin but breathable. His suit's translator remained silent. No radio signals, no attempts at communication from inside. The pod's interior was dimly lit by emergency power. Curved walls pulsed with a faint blue light, and strange symbols flickered on dying displays. But Marcus's attention focused on the small figure strapped into the center seat. It was a child. The alien looked roughly human in shape, but with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the low light. Its head was larger than a human child's, with delicate features and closed eyes that seemed too big for its face. Thin arms hung limply, and Marcus could see dark fluid, probably blood, seeping from several wounds. The child's breathing was shallow and rapid. Whatever species this was, it was clearly in shock and losing life fast. Marcus had spent 15 years studying alien biology before joining the Deep Space Research Program. His training kicked in as he carefully examined the injured child. The bone structure seemed familiar, and the breathing patterns matched several known species in the database. "It's okay," he whispered, though he knew the child couldn't understand. "I'm going to help you." Working quickly, Marcus disconnected the alien restraints and lifted the child carefully. It weighed almost nothing, its body frighteningly fragile in his arms. The child's skin felt warm through his gloves, and he could feel a rapid heartbeat, or what he hoped was a heartbeat. Back on the research station, Marcus carried the unconscious child to the medical bay. Dr. Kim waited there, her face tight with worry. "Marcus, this is insane. We don't know anything about this species' biology. Our medical equipment might kill it. Look at these wounds, Sarah." Marcus placed the child gently on the examination table. "Something attacked its ship. This is a refugee, not an invader." The child stirred slightly as the medical scanners began their work. Its large eyes fluttered open, revealing pupils that shifted from black to deep gold. It looked around the room with obvious fear, then focused on Marcus's face. For a moment, neither moved. The child's breathing slowed as it studied Marcus's expression. Whatever it saw there seemed to calm it, because the rigid fear in its small body began to relax. "Easy," Marcus said softly. "Nobody's going to hurt you here." The medical scans revealed fascinating information. The child's internal structure was surprisingly similar to humans, with only minor differences in organ placement. More importantly, its blood chemistry responded well to standard human medical treatments. Over the next few hours, Marcus worked to stabilize his patient. The child drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes crying out in a musical language that the computer couldn't translate. Each time Marcus would speak quietly and the alien child would calm down. "It's responding to you," Sarah observed. "Its stress indicators drop whenever you talk." Marcus nodded, carefully adjusting the IV feed. Human glucose seemed to work perfectly in the child's system. Maybe we're more similar than we thought. By the end of the first day, the child was stable but still unconscious most of the time. Marcus had set up a cot in the medical bay and refused to leave. Something about the small alien's complete vulnerability touched him deeply. The child had arrived with nothing. No identification, no belongings, no clues about its origin. The destroyed ship had left no traces, and long-range sensors showed no other alien vessels in the area. On the second day, the child woke up fully for the first time. It sat up slowly, looking around the medical bay with wide, curious eyes. When it saw Marcus approaching with a food tray, it pressed itself back against the wall. Marcus stopped several feet away and sat down on the floor, making himself smaller and less threatening. He placed the tray between them and pointed to himself. "Marcus," he said clearly. The child tilted its head, studying him. After a long moment, it pointed to itself and made a soft sound that might have been a name. Marcus tried to repeat it, but his human throat couldn't make the right tones. "Can I call you Kex?" Marcus asked. The child seemed to consider this, then nodded slowly. It reached toward the food tray, moving carefully as if expecting Marcus to stop it. When he made encouraging gestures, Kex picked up a piece of fruit and ate it cautiously. Over the following days, they developed a simple communication system. Kex learned basic human words with surprising speed, while Marcus picked up a few of the musical tones that seemed to be the child's natural language. More importantly, Kex began to trust him. The child would follow Marcus around the medical bay, watching everything he did with intense curiosity. When Marcus sat down to eat, Kex would sit beside him. When Marcus worked at the computer, Kex would stand nearby, sometimes placing a small hand on his arm. "I've never seen anything like this," Sarah told Marcus privately. "That child has bonded with you completely. It acts like you're its parent." Marcus watched Kex through the medical bay window. The child was drawing with colored pens Marcus had found, creating swirling patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. "What happens when its real parents come looking?" Sarah asked. Marcus had been thinking about that constantly. Somewhere out there, someone was probably searching for this child, but the more time he spent with Kex, the harder it became to imagine giving the child up to strangers. "We'll deal with that when it happens," Marcus said, but deep in his heart he hoped it never would. That night, Kex had nightmares. The child woke up screaming in its musical language, tears streaming down its pale blue cheeks. Marcus rushed to comfort it, and Kex threw its thin arms around his neck, holding on desperately. "It's okay," Marcus whispered. "You're safe now. I won't let anything hurt you." Kex looked up at him with those huge golden eyes and said something in its own language. The computer's translator caught part of it. "Protect. Stay. Father?" Marcus felt his heart clench. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This child needed him, and somehow he needed Kex too. "Yes," he whispered back. "I'll protect you. I'll stay." Kex smiled for the first time since arriving, and Marcus knew there was no going back. 3 weeks had passed since Kex arrived at the station. The child had grown stronger each day, and Marcus had grown more attached. Kex followed him everywhere, chattering in a mixture of its musical native language and broken human words. "Marcus, father," Kex said one morning, tugging on his sleeve. "Show Kex how make the lights dance?" Marcus smiled and activated the holographic display. Kex loved watching the swirling patterns of data, and Marcus had learned to create simple light shows that made the child giggle with delight. It was a sound that never failed to warm his heart. But their peaceful routine was about to be shattered. Dr. Kim burst into the lab where Marcus was teaching Kex basic human mathematics. Her face was pale and her hand shook as she activated the main view screen. "Marcus, you need to see this." The screen filled with images from the outer colonies. Smoke rose from burning buildings. Human refugees fled in panic toward evacuation ships, and above it all, massive alien warships hung in the sky like dark metal clouds. "The Zephyrian Empire," Kim said grimly. "They've attacked 3 human colonies in the past week. Intelligence reports say they're searching for something." Marcus felt cold dread settle in his stomach. He looked down at Kex, who was staring at the screen with growing fear. The child's blue skin had gone even paler, and its golden eyes were wide with recognition. "Kex?" Marcus knelt down beside the child. "Do you know these ships?" Kex nodded slowly, tears beginning to form in its large eyes. It pointed at the warships and said something in its native language that the computer couldn't translate. but Marcus heard the fear in the child's voice. More reports came in throughout the day. The Zephyrian forces weren't just attacking randomly. They were boarding human ships, scanning human settlements, and demanding information about missing persons. The pattern was becoming clear. They were looking for someone. That evening, Marcus sat with Kex in the observation deck. The child had been quiet all day, pressing close to Marcus's side as if afraid to let him out of sight. "Kex," Marcus said gently, "I think those ships are looking for you." The child nodded miserably.
Kex?
Kex important to them. Very important. Its human words were getting better every day, but they still came out in a halting rhythm. "Are they your family?" Kex was quiet for a long time. When it finally spoke, its voice was barely a whisper. "Family hurt Kex, make Kex do bad things? Marcus' father is good family. Real family." Marcus's heart broke at the pain in the child's voice. Whatever Kex had escaped from, it wasn't a loving home. Marcus pulled the child closer, feeling its small body trembling against his side. "I won't let them take you," he promised. "We'll figure something out." But even as he spoke the words, Marcus knew they might be impossible to keep. The Zephyrian Empire was vast and powerful. If they wanted Kex back, what could one human research station do to stop them? Over the next few days, the situation grew worse. More colonies reported Zephyrian raids. The aliens weren't being particularly violent, but they were thorough. They searched every human facility they could find, clearly looking for specific individuals. Marcus tried to keep Kex's spirits up, but the child was intelligent enough to understand the danger. It began having nightmares again, waking up crying and calling for Marcus' father in the dark. "Maybe we should consider contacting them," Dr. Kim suggested during one of their private meetings. "If we explain that we rescued Kex, that we've been taking good care of the child." "No." Marcus's voice was harder than Kim had ever heard it. "You didn't see Kex when it first arrived. Something terrible happened to that child before it escaped. I'm not sending it back to that." Kim looked uncomfortable. "Marcus, I understand you've grown attached, but this is bigger than just you and Kex. The Zephyrians are attacking human colonies. People are dying, and how many more will die if we give them what they want?" Marcus shot back. "What if Kex is the key to something worse? What if returning the child just makes them stronger?" The argument was interrupted by an urgent chime from the communication system. Kim activated the display, and Admiral Harrison's stern face appeared on the screen. "Research Station Omega-7, this is Fleet Command. We're ordering immediate evacuation of all personnel in your sector. Zephyrian forces are moving your way." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. "Admiral, how long do we have?" 48 hours at most. Transport ships are being dispatched to your location." Harrison's expression softened slightly. "Marcus, I know you've been out there a long time, but this is not a drill. These aliens mean business." After the communication ended, Marcus found himself staring out at the gas giant below. In 2 days, everything would change. The station would be abandoned, and he would be forced to return to human space. But what about Kex? The child appeared beside him, moving with the silent grace Marcus had learned to recognize. Kex could somehow sense emotions, especially strong ones. It always seemed to know when Marcus was troubled. Marcus' father worried, Kex observed. "Bad ships coming?" Marcus nodded. "Very bad ships." "We have to leave this place. Kex go with Marcus' father?" The simple question hit Marcus like a physical blow. Of course Kex would expect to stay with him. The child trusted him completely, saw him as its real parent. But taking Kex into human space would make them both fugitives. The government would eventually find out, and then what? "I don't know, Kex," Marcus said honestly. "It's complicated." Kex studied his face with those impossibly wise golden eyes. "Marcus' father protect Kex. Kex protect Marcus' father too. How can you protect me?" Marcus asked, curious despite his worry. Kex touched its forehead with one delicate finger. "Kex feel things now. Feel them better since living with Marcus' father. Can feel danger coming. Can feel when people lie or tell truth." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You can read minds?" "Not read, feel like feeling if someone happy or sad but stronger." Kex paused, struggling with the human words. Get stronger each day. Maybe because Marcus' father teaches Kex to trust feelings, not hide them. This was new information and potentially important. Marcus had noticed that Kex seemed unusually perceptive, but he'd attributed it to intelligence rather than telepathic abilities. "Kex, can you feel anything from those ships? The ones looking for you?" The child's expression grew sad. Feel anger. Very angry and scared. They scared too, but hide it behind anger. What are they scared of? Change, Kex said simply. They scared of Kex changing. Scared of what Kex becoming with Marcus' father. Before Marcus could ask what that meant, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed and the computer's voice echoed through the corridors. Unknown vessels approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. Marcus and Kex rushed to the command center, where Dr. Kim was frantically working at the sensor controls. The main screen showed space around the station, but it looked empty. I'm not seeing anything, Kim said, confusion in her voice. There, Kex pointed at a seemingly empty section of space. 3 ships. Very quiet ships, hiding. Marcus looked where Kex was pointing but saw nothing on the sensors. Then slowly 3 massive shapes began to materialize as if emerging from invisibility. The Zephyrian warships were unlike anything in human experience. Sleek, organic-looking vessels that seemed to flow through space rather than travel through it. How did you see them when our sensors couldn't? Marcus asked. Kex, feel the people inside, the child replied. Feel their anger getting closer. The lead ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the research station. Its hull was deep purple, almost black, and covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. As Marcus watched, the ship extended what looked like organic tendrils toward the station. Incoming transmission, Kim announced. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at an alien face that was clearly related to Kex, but far more mature and intimidating. The being's blue skin was darker than Kex's, and intricate tattoos or markings covered its forehead and cheeks. Its golden eyes burned with barely contained fury. Humans, the alien spoke, its voice like thunder in the station's speakers. You will return what was stolen from us. Return the child, and your deaths will be swift. Marcus felt Kex tremble beside him. The child whispered something that sounded like a name, and the translator caught part of it. Father King. Marcus's heart sank as the pieces fell into place. Kex wasn't just any alien child. Kex was royalty, possibly the heir to the entire Zephyrian Empire. And Marcus had just declared war on the most powerful alien civilization in the known galaxy. The alien king's image filled the view screen, his golden eyes burning with rage. Marcus could feel the weight of that stare even through the display. Beside him, Kex had gone completely still, pressing against Marcus's leg like a frightened animal. I am King Vorthak of the Zephyrian Empire, the alien continued, his voice like rolling thunder. You hold my heir, Prince Kexthalan. Return him immediately or face the consequences. Dr. Kim looked at Marcus with panic in her eyes. They were just scientists on a research station. They had no weapons, no defenses against warships that could destroy them with a single blast. Marcus stepped forward, placing himself between Kex and the view screen. Your Majesty, we found your son injured in an escape pod. We've been caring for him, healing his wounds. Caring for him? Vorthak's laugh was like breaking glass. You poison his mind with your weakness. You teach him to show emotion, to be soft like humans. You corrupt what should be strong. Behind Marcus, Kex made a small sound of distress. The child's musical voice whispered, Marcus, father, please don't let them take Kex back. The whisper was soft, but the communication system picked it up and broadcast it to the Zephyrian ship. King Vorthak's expression changed from anger to something much more dangerous, a cold, deadly fury. Father? Vorthak's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. My son calls a human father? Marcus felt his blood turn to ice, but he didn't back down. He was dying when we found him. We saved his life, and in return you stole his soul. Vorthak leaned forward, his marked face filling the screen. You will bring him to my ship immediately. I will deal with this corruption personally. No. The word was out of Marcus's mouth before he could stop it. I won't let you hurt him. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. Dr. Kim made a choking sound, and even the station's computers seemed to hold their breath. Vorthak's eyes narrowed. You dare refuse me? You are nothing. A single insect challenging a storm. Maybe, Marcus said, surprised by how steady his voice sounded. But this insect won't abandon his son. Before Vorthak could respond, the communication cut out. The view screen went black, leaving the command center in tense silence. Marcus, Kim whispered, what have you done? Before he could answer, new alarms began blaring. The station shuddered as something powerful grabbed it from outside. On the screen, they could see the massive Zephyrian ship's tendrils wrapping around the station's hull like the arms of some cosmic sea creature. "They're boarding us," Kim announced, her voice tight with fear. Marcus knelt down beside Kex, looking into the child's frightened golden eyes. "Listen to me carefully. No matter what happens, remember that you are loved. Remember that being kind isn't being weak. Remember that you have a choice." Kex nodded, tears streaming down its blue cheeks. "Kex, remember everything Marcus' father taught. Promise." The sound of metal tearing echoed through the station. The Zephyrians weren't bothering with airlocks, they were cutting directly through the hull. "Stay behind me," Marcus told Kex as they moved toward the main corridor. The first Zephyrian soldiers to board were like nothing Marcus had ever seen. They wore armor that seemed to be part of their bodies, dark metal that flowed and shifted with their movements. Their faces were hidden behind masks that glowed with the same golden light as their eyes. But it was King Vorthak himself who commanded Marcus's attention. The Zephyrian ruler was enormous, at least 7 feet tall, with presence that seemed to fill the entire corridor. His armor was more elaborate than his soldiers, covered in symbols that pulsed with inner light. "Stand aside, human," Vorthak commanded. "My business is with the prince." "Your business is with me first," Marcus replied, not moving from in front of Kex. Vorthak studied him with those burning golden eyes. "You are either very brave or very stupid. I have not decided which. Maybe both," Marcus admitted. "But I won't let you take him without a fight." "A fight?" Vorthak actually seemed amused. "You would challenge me? You know nothing of Zephyrian combat traditions. Then teach me." The king's amusement faded. "Very well. By the ancient laws, you may face me in single combat for the right to keep what you claim. But know this, if you lose, you die. And the prince returns with me regardless." Marcus's mouth went dry, but he nodded. "And if I win?" "If you win," Vorthak said with the tone of someone discussing an impossibility, "the prince may choose his own fate." Behind Marcus, Kex made a sound of protest. The child tried to push past him, but Marcus gently held it back. "No, Kex, this is my choice," but Kex wouldn't be stopped. The child stepped around Marcus and faced its father directly. When it spoke, its voice was stronger than Marcus had ever heard it. "Father King, Kex chooses now." Kex chooses Marcus' father. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Vorthak stared down at his child, his expression unreadable behind the shifting patterns of his face markings. "You choose weakness," Vorthak said finally. "You choose to abandon your duty, your people, your destiny." "Kex chooses love," the child replied simply. Marcus' father taught Kex that love makes strong, not weak. "Love?" Vorthak spat the word like poison. "Love is a human disease. It makes you soft, makes you vulnerable." "No," Kex said. And suddenly the child's voice carried a power that made everyone in the corridor take notice. "Love makes brave. Love makes fight for others. Love makes sacrifice for family." As Kex spoke, something extraordinary happened. The air around the child began to shimmer, and Marcus felt a warm pressure in his mind. It wasn't intrusive or threatening. It felt like a gentle touch full of affection and gratitude. Vorthak stepped back, his eyes widening. "Impossible. Your telepathic abilities? They've grown. Grown strong because of love," Kex confirmed. "Because Marcus' father taught Kex to feel, not hide feelings." The child turned to Marcus and its mental touch grew stronger. Suddenly, Marcus could sense what Kex was feeling. Determination, love, and a deep sadness for the father who couldn't understand. But he could also sense something else. Through Kex's enhanced abilities, Marcus caught glimpses of Vorthak's true emotions. Beneath the anger and authority, the king was afraid. Not afraid of losing his son, but afraid of losing control. Afraid that if Kex's new way of thinking spread, it would destroy everything Vorthak had built. "You're scared," Marcus said suddenly, the realization hitting him like lightning. "You're not angry that we took your son. You're scared of what he's becoming." Vorthak's hand moved to the weapon at his side. "I fear nothing, human." "Yes, you do." Marcus stepped forward, ignoring the weapons pointed at him. "You're afraid that if your people learn to love like Kex does, they won't want to follow you anymore. You're afraid that kindness is stronger than fear." "Enough." Vorthak drew his weapon, something that looked like controlled lightning in the shape of a blade. "You know nothing of leadership, nothing of the burdens of power." But before he could strike, Kex moved between them. The child's telepathic abilities flared, and suddenly everyone in the corridor could feel what it felt. Love for Marcus, sadness for Vorthak, hope for something better. Father King, Kex said, its young voice carrying impossible wisdom. Kex still love you, but cannot go back to old ways. Cannot be what you want Kex to be. Vorthak wavered, his weapon trembling in his grip. For a moment, Marcus saw past the king's armor and authority to the father underneath. A father who loved his child but didn't know how to show it. You would abandon your entire people for this human? Vorthak asked, his voice breaking slightly. Kex would help people new way, the child replied. Help them learn that strong and kind can be same thing. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility. Marcus held his breath, knowing that whatever happened next would determine not just their fates but the future of two entire civilizations. Then Kex did something that surprised everyone. The child walked up to its father and placed a small blue hand on the king's armored chest. Please, Father King, let Kex show you. And in that moment, as father and child touched, Marcus felt the full power of Kex's telepathic gift wash over all of them. He saw Vorthak's memories, the weight of ruling a dying world, the desperation that had driven his people to war, the love for his son that he'd never known how to express. But he also felt Vorthak experiencing Kex's memories of the past weeks, the gentleness, the patience, the unconditional acceptance that Marcus had shown. The king felt for the first time what it was like to be truly loved without conditions or expectations. Vorthak staggered back, his weapon clattering to the floor. His golden eyes were wide with shock and something that might have been wonder. What? What have you done to my son? He whispered. I loved him, Marcus said simply. That's all. And for the first time since boarding the station, King Vorthak had no answer. The silence in the corridor stretched like a held breath. King Vorthak stared at his son, his weapon forgotten on the floor. The other Zephyrian soldiers remained frozen, unsure what to do when their absolute ruler showed uncertainty. Bring them both to my ship, Vorthak said finally, his voice quiet and strange. I would understand this better. Marcus felt Kex's small hand slip into his as the Zephyrian soldiers escorted them through the organic corridors of the massive warship. Everything here was alive in some way. Walls that pulsed gently, lights that responded to their presence, floors that seemed to adjust their texture for comfort. Don't be afraid, Kex whispered in its musical language, though the translator caught the meaning. Kex can feel Father King's mind now. He confused but not angry anymore. The throne room was vast, with a ceiling that showed the stars outside as if there were no barrier between them and space. Vorthak sat on a throne that looked grown rather than built, its organic curves matching the rest of the ship's design. But he wasn't alone. A dozen other Zephyrians stood around the room, advisors, Marcus guessed, from their elaborate clothing and the way they positioned themselves near the king. Explain to me again, Vorthak said, how a human managed to enhance my son's telepathic abilities when our greatest mind workers could not. Marcus looked around the room, feeling very small among these tall, imposing aliens, but Kex's presence beside him gave him courage. I didn't do anything special, Marcus said honestly. I just treated him like he mattered, like his feelings were important. One of the advisors, an elderly Zephyrian with silver markings on his face, stepped forward. Impossible. Emotional attachment weakens telepathic focus. It creates mental noise, interference, maybe for adults, Marcus replied. But Kex is still growing. His abilities grew because he felt safe to explore them, not because he was forced to suppress everything else. You speak of things you do not understand, another advisor said, her voice sharp with disapproval. The prince was trained by the finest telepathic masters in the Empire. Trained to hide feelings, Kex said suddenly, his young voice carrying clearly through the vast room. Trained to be empty inside, but empty mind cannot grow strong. Only full mind, happy mind can become powerful. Vorthak leaned forward on his throne. Show them, he commanded his son. Show them what you have learned. Kex nodded and closed his large golden eyes. The air around the child began to shimmer again, and suddenly Marcus could feel the minds of everyone in the room. It wasn't invasive, more like hearing distant music or catching the scent of flowers on the wind. The Zephyrian advisors gasped. Through Kex's abilities, Marcus could sense their shock. The child's telepathic range had grown far beyond what should be possible for someone his age. But more than that, Kex could do something the adult Zephyrians couldn't. He could share emotions as well as thoughts. Marcus felt the child's love for him flowing outward, touching every mind in the room. Several of the advisors actually stepped back, overwhelmed by the unfamiliar sensation. Remarkable, the elderly advisor whispered, but dangerous. Such power without proper control is controlled, Kex interrupted, opening his eyes. Controlled by love. Controlled by knowing right from wrong, not controlled by fear. Vorthak stood from his throne and walked down to stand before his son. The king knelt, bringing himself to Kex's eye level. You have changed, he said softly, in ways I did not expect. Kex still same inside, the child replied. Still love Father King. Still want to help people, but now no better way to help. What way is that? Kex looked up at Marcus, then back at his father. Way that makes people want to follow, not have to follow. Way that makes people strong because they choose to be strong, not because they're afraid to be weak. One of the younger advisors scoffed. Pretty words, but impractical. Our people face extinction. Our world is dying. We need strength and discipline, not feelings. Marcus had been listening to the advisors carefully, and suddenly pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Your world is dying? Is that why you've been raiding human colonies? Vorthak's expression hardened slightly. Our sun grows cold. Our atmosphere grows thin. We have perhaps 50 years before Zephyros can no longer support life. And you thought the solution was war. We thought the solution was expansion. New worlds, new resources. Vorthak's voice carried the weight of desperation. But human resistance has been stronger than expected. Marcus looked around the room at the assembled advisors. These weren't monsters, they were people facing the end of their world, making desperate choices out of fear. What if there was another way? He asked quietly. The silver-marked advisor laughed bitterly. What could humans offer us? Your technology is inferior, your world's already claimed. Not technology, Marcus said. Partnership, the word fell into silence. Vorthak's golden eyes fixed on Marcus with laser intensity. Explain. Marcus took a deep breath, knowing he was about to suggest something that could change everything, or get them all killed. Kex's abilities didn't just grow because of love, he said. They grew because of contact with human minds. Our neural patterns seem to enhance telepathic abilities in Zephyrians. The elderly advisor's eyes widened. That would explain the unprecedented power increase. More than that, Marcus continued, his thoughts racing. If human and Zephyrian minds are compatible, if we can enhance each other's abilities, then maybe we don't need to fight over resources. Maybe we can work together to solve both our problems. Impossible, one of the advisors said. The genetic incompatibility alone is apparently not a problem, Kex interrupted. Kex's body healed faster with human medicine than with Zephyrian healing pods. Human food made Kex stronger. Human teaching made Kex's mind grow. Vorthak was very still, his gaze moving between his son and Marcus. You suggest alliance. Between our species, I suggest survival, Marcus replied. For both of us. Humans have worlds with resources you need. Zephyrians have technology we could use. And apparently, we have biological compatibility that could benefit everyone. The Council of Worlds would never accept, an advisor began. The Council doesn't have to know immediately, Marcus interrupted. Start small. Joint research stations, cultural exchanges. Let people see that cooperation works better than conquest. Kex stepped closer to his father, looking up with those enormous golden eyes. Kex could be bridge, the child said. Kex understands both ways now. Could help both peoples learn to trust. Vorthak stared down at his son for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful rather than commanding. You would give up your position as heir to the throne, your destiny as a warrior king. Kex would not give up, the child said firmly. Kex would change what it means to be king. Would be king who builds instead of destroys. King who protects by making friends, not by making enemies afraid. The throne room fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's organic systems. Marcus could feel the weight of history pressing down on this moment. Decisions made here would affect millions of lives across both civilizations. Finally, Vorthak stood and faced Marcus directly. You asked me to trust you. To trust humans. After we have been enemies for so long, I ask you to trust Kex, Marcus replied. He's lived with both of us. If anyone can judge whether this could work, it's him. Vorthak looked down at his son, and Marcus saw something he hadn't expected. Pride. Not the fierce pride of a warrior king, but the gentle pride of a father seeing his child grow wise. Very well, Vorthak said finally. We will try this partnership, but slowly, carefully. And if it fails, it won't fail, Keck said with absolute certainty, because it built on love, not fear, and love always stronger than fear in the end. Marcus felt hope bloom in his chest for the first time since the Zephyrian ships had appeared. Maybe, just maybe, they had found a way forward that didn't end in war. But as he looked around the room at the skeptical faces of the advisors, he knew the real work was just beginning. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the New Harmony research station, watching ships from both civilizations dock at the massive orbital facility. Human transport vessels with their angular, practical designs shared berths with the flowing organic curves of Zephyrian craft. It was working. Marcus' father, come see. Kex's voice carried across the deck, still musical but now fluent in human speech. The child, no longer quite a child, had grown in the months since the confrontation on Vorthak's ship. Marcus turned to see Kex demonstrating something to a group of young humans and Zephyrians. The mixed group was watching in fascination as Kex levitated several objects, while simultaneously creating patterns of light in the air. The key is not forcing the connection, Kex explained to his eager audience. Human minds provide stability, Zephyrian minds provide power. Together we can do things neither species could alone. One of the human children, a girl named Sarah, raised her hand. But how do we know if we're compatible? Kex smiled, an expression that had become much more common in recent months. Easy. We practice together like family. Trust each other. Share feelings, not just thoughts. Marcus watched the demonstration with pride and amazement. Kex had become exactly what he'd promised, a bridge between worlds. The child worked effortlessly with both species, teaching humans to open their minds and Zephyrians to open their hearts. Remarkable, isn't it? Marcus turned to see King Vorthak approaching. The Zephyrian ruler still cut an imposing figure, but his manner had changed. He moved with less rigid authority and more thoughtful consideration. He's incredible, Marcus agreed. Both of our species are lucky to have him. Vorthak nodded, watching his son with an expression of wonder. I confess I still do not fully understand how you knew this would work. How you saw potential I was blind to. Marcus considered the question. I didn't know it would work. I just knew that love was stronger than fear, and that Kex deserved a chance to choose his own path. Love. Vorthak repeated the word slowly, as if still learning its meaning. My people are struggling with this concept. We have been warriors for so many generations. Change takes time, Marcus said gently. But look around. Your people are learning, just like mine are. It was true. Across the station, humans and Zephyrians worked side by side. The initial suspicion and fear had given way to curiosity, then cooperation, and finally something approaching friendship. Not for everyone. There were still those on both sides who opposed the alliance, but for enough people to make it work. The research they'd conducted together had been revolutionary. Human creativity combined with Zephyrian telepathic abilities had led to breakthroughs in technology, medicine, and science. They'd developed new terraforming techniques that could save the Zephyrian homeworld while providing humans with expanded living space. More importantly, they'd proven that the two species could coexist and thrive together. Father King, Kex called out, noticing Vorthak's arrival. Come help with lesson. Young ones want to hear about old Zephyrian meditation techniques. Vorthak hesitated for a moment, then moved toward the group. Marcus watched with amusement as the once fearsome king settled cross-legged on the floor with a bunch of children, patiently explaining ancient mental disciplines in simple terms. Ambassador Chen? Dr. Kim appeared at Marcus's elbow carrying a datapad. The monthly report from the Council of Worlds. Marcus accepted the pad and scanned through it. The news was mostly good. More colonies were requesting cultural exchange programs, trade agreements were being signed, and the joint terraforming project was ahead of schedule. Any problems? He asked. Some resistance from the harder military factions on both sides, Kim reported. Admiral Peterson is still pushing for proper defenses against Zephyrian infiltration. And apparently, some of Vorthak's old advisors are calling the alliance a sign of weakness. Marcus nodded. They'd expected this. Change was never easy, especially for those who'd built their identities around old conflicts. How's the integration program going? Kim's expression brightened. Better than expected. We have 12 human Zephyrian research teams now, and their productivity is off the charts. The telepathic enhancement effect is even stronger than we initially hoped. And socially, 3 marriages announced this month, Kim said with a grin, including Dr. Morrison and science leader Thekavil. Their telepathic bond is apparently quite romantic. Marcus laughed. Love, it seemed, truly was universal. A soft chime interrupted their conversation. The station's communication system activated and Admiral Peterson's stern face appeared on the nearby viewscreen. Ambassador Chen, we need to discuss the latest intelligence reports. There are rumors of Zephyrian military buildups in the outer sectors. Marcus sighed. Peterson had been one of the most vocal opponents of the alliance from the beginning. Admiral, those are joint training exercises. Collaborative defense against the Void Runners, so you say. But how do we know this isn't preparation for invasion? Before Marcus could answer, Kex appeared beside him. The young Zephyrian's telepathic abilities had grown so strong that he could sense emotional disturbances from across the station. Admiral Peterson, Kex said politely, would you like Kex to contact the Zephyrian forces directly? You can feel their intentions for yourself through telepathic link. Peterson's face went pale. That won't be necessary, Prince Kex-Thalan. Just Kex now, the young Zephyrian corrected gently. And offer still open. Fear comes from not understanding. Understanding comes from connection. After Peterson's image disappeared, Marcus ruffled Kex's hair, a gesture the young Zephyrian had come to love. You're getting good at diplomacy, Marcus observed. Learning from the best Marcus father, Kex replied with a grin. But also learning that some people need more time to change. Fear is strong habit. Speaking of change, Vorthak approached, having finished his impromptu lesson with the children. I have news from the Zephyrian Council. Marcus felt a flutter of concern. The Zephyrian political situation was still delicate, with many factions competing for influence. They have officially designated you as Kex's co-parent under Zephyrian law, Vorthak announced. You now have legal standing as a member of the royal family. Marcus blinked in surprise. What does that mean exactly? It means, Kex said happily, throwing his arms around Marcus, that now nobody can say we not real family. Both human law and Zephyrian law say Marcus is Kex's father. It also means, Vorthak added with what might have been amusement, that you are technically a Zephyrian prince now. I hope you do not mind the diplomatic immunity and ceremonial obligations. Marcus looked around at the bustling station, at the mixed groups of humans and Zephyrians working together, at Kex beaming up at him with those golden eyes full of love and trust. I think I can handle it, he said. Later that evening, Marcus and Kex sat together in their shared quarters looking out at the stars. The gas giant below had been joined by a new site, the first joint colony ships heading out to establish a shared settlement on a world that would be home to both species. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked quietly. Giving up your original path to become king? Kex was quiet for a moment, considering the question with the thoughtfulness that had become his trademark. Kex still going to be king someday, he said finally, but different kind of king. King who rules by love, not fear. King who builds bridges instead of walls. He looked up at Marcus with a smile. Best kind of king to be. And if some people don't like the changes, then Kex keeps showing them better way, the young Zephyrian replied with certainty. Love always wins in the end, Marcus, father. You taught Kex that. Marcus smiled, pulling his son closer. Outside their window, ships from 2 worlds continued their ancient dance around the stars, no longer as enemies but as family. Yes, he said softly. I suppose it does. In the distance, the first joint colony ship engaged its engines and began the journey toward humanity's and Zephyria's shared future. And at the heart of it all, the love between a human scientist and an alien child continued to prove that the strongest bonds weren't made of law, or blood, or duty. They were made of choice, of caring, of seeing the best in each other even when the rest of the universe saw only differences. Love, Marcus reflected, truly was the most human thing of all. And now, thanks to one small alien child with golden eyes and a heart big enough to bridge 2 worlds, it was becoming universal.